Hi, this is John from Sharp Mountain Games, and today we're going to take a look at and we're going to review ApesVictorious by Goblinoid Games. So it's written by Dan Proctor and illustrated by Mark Allen, and we'll get a chance to take a look at that artwork when we do the flip through. And in a word, what it is old school Planet of the Apes. It's Planet of the Apes for old school rule sets or OSR rule sets. And it was designed by Dan to be very, very easily compatible with his other games, Labyrinth Lord, Starships and Spacemen, which I reviewed in a previous video, and I'll have the link below if you want to take a look at that. And also his other post-apocalyptic game, Mutant Future. That said, it's also extremely compatible with any other old school fantasy setting or rule set. So if you like BX, original Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or you're playing one of the other clones like Basic Fantasy RPG, you can easily adapt the material in here to that game system. So let's take a look at the flip through. So let's take a look at the book. And the first thing we can see is the front cover here. Beautiful, and it's obviously, it's by Mark Allen and reflecting the old school Planet of the Apes. Even the font for like the chapter headings is old school Planet of the Apes. And a lot of black and white artwork in here has a certain charm. And I'm not going to go through every page, but I'll try and hit the main stuff. So you can see you could easily set this on a post-apocalyptic Earth. There's the iconic Statue of Liberty. You could also set it on another planet if you choose. And we get right into characters. The modifiers are very similar to old school Dungeons and Dragons types games and the retro clones. Instead of wisdom, you have psionics and psionic points. So if you're a character who has those psionic abilities, that will work for you. Now the classes. There are 7 classes. Astronaut, Underdweller, and those are the mutants or the Underdwellers, I think they call them in the Planet of the Apes cartoon. Gorilla Soldier, Orangutan, who are the politicians, the chimpanzees, who are the scholars and the doctors and the archaeologists, the bonobos, who are, they're kind of like the agents. They're kind of like thieves in basic Dungeons and Dragons, and the humanoids. Now the astronauts are over here. The astronauts, you can specialize. You can give them a background. So maybe they started out life in building and construction. And that actually could be useful in a post-apocalyptic society. See if a building is stable or not, or how to help repair something. Farming, general science, medicine. So there are some abilities. So even though you're playing an astronaut, you can customize a little bit. The other character classes are a little less customizable, maybe. They're more the archetypes. So the bonobo agent is like the thief. The chimpanzee scholar is a scholar. Gorilla soldier. Now humanoids, you can play them like in the original movies where they don't speak, or maybe they just know a few words, like if you remember Nova from the original 2 movies. Or you can play them, there's optional suggestions later, where they're a little more intelligent. That was more like the Planet of the Apes TV show. And I actually think that's the better way to go if you're going to run like a mini campaign or a full campaign, where maybe the apes kind of limit what they can do, but they still let them be farmers and have villages. It would just, I think, provide a lot more role-playing opportunities. But even if you play the more regressed type of human, they do give you some bonuses on your saving throws and your ability to find food. So they do have some advantages, maybe in the wilderness. Orangutan politician. And you can be an underdweller with the psionic powers. And these are almost exactly like the mutants from Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where they worship the bomb. And you get some gear. Underdweller gear lets you bring a little more of the science fiction into things, because you have energy pistols and energy rifles, which would be like, blasters or laser rifles. The psionic powers. Now, the psionic powers are, I believe, almost exactly the same as in Starships and Spacemen. I think he wrote this afterwards, so he did adjust a few things, maybe to make some things more clear. Adventuring rules and more art by Mark Allen. And the adventuring rules, these are straight out of old school Dungeons and Dragons and the retro clones. So if, how to open doors, how to do surprise, how to roll initiative. He does allow for individual initiative as well. combat, and you see there's a combat chart. Now, I should say with the combat, it's roll under. So you roll a 12 or under to hit. Now, armor class is a little bit different in that it's negative. So let's say a creature has a -3 armor class. So if you usually roll a 12, well, 12 minus 3 is 9. Now you'd have to roll a 9 or under. So it makes it a little more difficult. I use a little workaround on that, though, that I think makes it a little easier for players. Players still have to roll under a 12. But if the armor class is -3, I just say it's 3. So I say roll under your number, but not too low. So if they roll under 12, as long as they don't get a 1, 2, or 3, they've still succeeded and they've still done damage. If you prefer, if you're using ascending armor class, that's an easy fix. If it's a -3 armor class, it's 13. You just add it to 10. If it's -2, it's 12. And if you want to make this instead of roll under attack bonuses, if it's 12, you have a +2 bonus. If it's 14, you have a +4 bonus. So it's very easy to switch over to whatever kind of armor class you prefer. There's morale in here if you want to use that. Poison, saving throws. And then it gets into, really, it gives you a short, basically a monster manual. Talks about the common intelligent inhabitants, and also suggests a lot of animals that may have been mutated by the radiation if it's post-apocalyptic. And there's not a whole lot in here, but there's some. However, even though there's not a whole lot, you could easily port in monsters from another old school game. No problem, you could do that. If you want carrion crawlers and other Umber Hulks or anything like that, easy to bring them in. There's a cyborg simian that the underdwellers use to spy on the surface world. So very easy to do. There's a chapter on Ape Society, another nice illustration. It looks like it could be almost right from the movies. Talks about the underdwellers, which you can play them if you want, but I think they would be more likely to be an NPC, what their society is like. And they're a little more advanced. They have robots and cyborgs, and they may even have transport gates, either to the past or to another planet. And then instead of the Dungeon Master, you're the Ape Master. It talks about, your astronauts are probably from the 70s if you want to make it more strictly from the old school movies, how to make it seem more 1970s. Then it gets into adventure themes. And here I think is where the author is trying to really get at the idea that this seems really like a limited setting. But it might not be as limited as you think. If you're an astronaut, maybe you want to find the way home. Maybe you want to fight the apes or seek the underdwellers. He gives a bunch of suggestions. You can play as apes hunting the humans or fighting against the underdwellers. And you can even play as underdwellers or a mixed group. Maybe you're a chimpanzee scholar like Zero or Cornelius and you want to help the humans. You can do that. Then it gets into suggested locations here. Things you might find in different caches. Like you might find computers and gumball machines or a ham radio, books. You might find a cryopod. I think that would be neat if you found people who were frozen from the past who might be able to help you. And then let's flip along here. Oh, they give you a little map. Kind of looks like the eastern United States. Again, very similar to the first Planet of the Apes movie. And they give you a background where you're astronauts and you're sent down to this planet to find other astronauts who may have crashed here and you don't know if they're alive or dead or what happened to them. Oh, there's some random encounters. I actually would pick one of these probably and just run it just to have a little bit of extra combat. And you're investigating an ape outpost. So I think what's actually interesting about this adventure is you probably don't want to run it hack and slash. PCs probably shouldn't be going in there just trying to kill every guerrilla soldier. A little stealth might go a long way to finding out what happened. And they give you a map for it. And what I would also suggest is maybe extend this. Maybe just find a cave map somewhere and they could, after they do this outpost, maybe that leads them to this cave where they are looking for ancient technology to try and repair their spaceship and get back to their spaceship. So you could easily extend this. Or you could use any kind of ruined map from another post-apocalyptic game. And then it ends with some conversions If you want to move it over to Labyrinth Lord, there's not much you have to do if you want to move it over to Mutant Future or Starships and Spacemen. You know, and as I said, you certainly can easily, you don't have to use those games. You can use any other old school game and you could easily port this over with minimal difficulty. Oh, and then who doesn't love a good character sheet? And you can see from how simple the character sheet is, how I think easy this would be to, if you want to play this game with someone who's a movie fan, but not necessarily a role-playing games fan. You have your 6 abilities and their modifiers, your saving throws, hit points, and your 2-hit number. Put their class abilities here, and maybe just a little note or two, you know, what each one does. You know, percentage to understand technology or how to heal. Just a quick little cheat sheet here for the players. It wouldn't be very much. Equipment and powers, and you're pretty much good to go. So to finish up, let's talk about maybe who wouldn't enjoy this book. So if you're looking for a game system with very detailed character creation and a whole big skill list, something more along the lines of, you know, 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons or 5e, this may not be the game for you. The characters in here are much more of archetypes. You know, if you're playing a chimpanzee scholar, you're playing a chimpanzee scholar. If you're playing an astronaut, you're playing the astronaut. Now, there is some customization. For example, with the astronauts, you can have a background skill, like maybe you started life as an artist or as a farmer or something like that. And same thing with the chimpanzee scholars. You know, are you more of an archaeologist or are you more of a medic? So there is a little bit of customization there, but not the same as maybe you'd get in some other games. Also, this is old school. If you're looking for 100% unified mechanics, you're not going to find that here. Most of the time you roll on a d20. For some of the skills, you're going to use percentile. Occasionally you may use, you know, how many out of 6. So if you're really looking that you need everything to be percentile or you need everything to be d20, it's not there. Now that said, the rules in here are not that complicated. Even though occasionally it uses a slightly different dice mechanic, you could easily fit it on a GM cheat sheet, you know, an index card, or put it on a DM screen. So it's not that it's that bad to learn. Also, if you're looking for a full post-apocalyptic game, you might want to look at Mutant Future, which is also from Goblinoid Games, if you want an old school post-apocalyptic game, because that's a little bit longer and covers a little bit more territory, gives you a few more monsters. So who will love this game? If you like OSR games, this is a very nice little book. It's a great example of how to write a very focused game on a particular genre and in a particular setting. It just does it very, very well. Now, there's another Planet of the Apes style game out there from Eden Studios. I believe it's called Terra Primate. I don't have it, so I can't comment on it. It might be an excellent game. It's about $40. This book, last price I checked on Lulu, was $12.99, so this is much cheaper, but it's also a much smaller book. If you love Planet of the Apes, you're going to love this book, because you might say, well, that seems like a really limited setting. However, in here, he suggests a lot of ways to extend things. So, for example, maybe as the player characters, as the astronauts, you're going to look for some technology underground that the mutants or the underdwellers have that could let you do time travel and go back in time to your own time. He suggests maybe there were Martian colonies or colonies on the moon that weren't taken over by the apes. So maybe your goal will be to try and get there. Another thought is you could play it a little differently. Maybe the humans and the apes want to band together. Maybe they have to band together against the mutants, or maybe aliens have landed and that provides a common threat that they would band together. So there's some nice suggestions in here for thinking a little bit beyond the source material. We don't have to be limited by the source material. You know, there's no limits. Whatever your imagination can come up with, there's a lot of different ways to extend this. You could easily do a mini campaign with this, I think, and have a lot of fun. So that's my review of ApesVictorious. I have links below where you can check it out, you know, if you're interested in it. And I also have links below to my review of Starships and Spacemen, and links to other products by Sharp Mountain Games, just from our online stores where you can purchase them, or to just take a look if you're interested. So if you liked it, you know, like and subscribe and all that, and we'll see you in the next video.